Welcome to the show. I'm Chiki Verhel.
And I'm Denise Tan.
Tonight's big story is yet another confrontation at sea between the Philippines and China that involves water cannons, dangerous maneuvers, and shadowing. The National Security Council's Jonathan Malaya gives us the full picture in a bit.
And Vice President Sara Duterte gets a second impeachment complaint in only 3 days. We speak to one of the leads for this complaint, Attorney Nery Colmenares, later on in the program.
And there are now growing calls for the resignation of the South Korean president after he declared martial law that immediately backfired. We begin yet another confrontation off the West Philippine Sea, and it's not just one incident. We're talking about 2 encounters in a day involving Chinese Coast Guard and Philippine vessels.
From Bajo de Masinloc to Escoda Shoal, the aggression ranged from water cannon attacks to sideswiping and blocking off access to waters in the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines. As expected, Manila and Beijing are trading accusations on who provoked what. Kayla Macantan has a big story tonight.
At 6:30 a.m. on Wednesday, December 4, China turned its water cannon on BRP Datu Pagbuaya, a vessel of the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources. The BFAR ship was at sail 16 nautical miles from Scarborough Shoal. In this drone video, a Chinese Coast Guard vessel can be seen chasing the much smaller boat of the Philippines.
10 meters!
While bombarding the BFAR vessel with water, Beijing's ship closed in. In another video, the crew of BFAR can be heard barking instructions at each other, a way to steer clear of China's attacks.
Banti, tirahan yung radar. Banti mo pa, tirahan yung radar.
But the Filipino ship carried on with its routine maritime patrol of Scarborough. But moments later, the CCG became more aggressive.
Collision! Collision!
The Chinese deliberately sideswiped BRP Datu Pagbuaya. From the air, the aggression at sea was more evident. The Chinese Coast Guard ship rammed the starboard side or right portion of the BFAR vessel. At one point, the Philippine ship looked like it was being dragged from the force of the attack. The impact was so powerful, the friction of steel on steel can be heard. The CCG boat also sustained deep scratches when it was all over. But this is not the end of the story. In another incident on the same day, the Chinese also rammed a BFAR vessel off Escoda Shoal. The railings of BRP Datu Roma Penet was flattened by the collision. According to the National Maritime Council, President Bongbong Marcos is disturbed over Beijing's recent illegal actions in the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone.
The president actually already knows the incident, no? And he, of course, he expressed his concern dahil bakit may ganito na naman nangyari, no? Merong ramming.
For the Philippine Coast Guard, China's latest aggression is an overkill and the first time that a Chinese Navy vessel chased a Philippine boat. The PCG is still assessing the damage the ramming incident had on BFAR vessels. Together with the NMC, it will also coordinate with the Department of Foreign Affairs for possible compensation from China. No Filipino personnel was hurt from the encounters at sea, but Manila and Beijing have started trading accusations. The China Coast Guard claimed it was Filipino ships that dangerously approached its vessels. It also warned Manila to immediately halt its infringements, provocations, and inflammatory actions. If the Philippines does not stand down, the CCG said the country will be held accountable for all consequences arising from such behavior. Mobile journalist Kayla Macantan, we are One News.
Let's talk about these recent encounters at sea with our first guest tonight. Welcome to the big story, Jonathan Malaya. He's the Assistant Director General of the National Security Council. Thanks for talking to us, sir.
Yes, I'm honored to be here, Denise and Chiki. Thanks for having me.
Sir, first, from the reports of the Philippine Coast Guard, what exactly transpired or what happened at Bajo de Masinloc? And it's not only BFAR vessel BRP Datu Pagbuaya that was involved in this encounter, but 2 other Philippine vessels. Is that correct? What is the story?
That's correct. Our Philippine vessels, both the BFAR and the Philippine Coast Guard, was responding to pleas no, was responding to requests for help coming from our Filipino fishermen because there was reports of harassment of our fishermen in that area. So immediately we deployed the BFAR and the Coast Guard vessels there. And it was our intent to resupply these Philippine vessels, Filipino fishermen, so that they can do their fishing for a prolonged period of time. But unfortunately, both BFAR and PCG vessels, in particular, Datu Pagbuaya and the Philippine Coast Guard vessel, in particular BRP Teresa Magbandua, the Bandua was blocked and shadowed by a plan or People's Liberation Army Navy ship, while the Datu Pagbuaya was twice quarter cannoned and side swept by CCG 3302.
ADG, as we know, it's always he said, she said when it comes to this encounters with China. And they are saying, of course, by they, I mean China, says it was a smaller boat of the Philippines that dangerously approached its vessel. What do you make of that? And again, what are you hearing from the crew, the members, the people on the BFAR ship?
Well, this is again typical Chinese disinformation, fake news, trying to change the narrative by claiming that it's the Philippines that infringed on their sovereignty, again claiming that the Philippines was the one that provoked this incident, or again claiming that the Philippines was the one that created the conditions upon which this incident happened. When in fact, we have showed videos and photos, as you can see right in front of you, that it was the Chinese vessels that did dangerous and aggressive maneuvers and did water cannon and side swept or rammed our vessels. Let me just emphasize that China has no legal right to bahod the Masinloc. BDM is Philippine territory. As such, it has a 10 nautical miles territorial sea, and this is clearly stated in the Philippine Maritime Zones law, the 2016 arbitral ruling, as well as UNCLOS. So again, we should not, the Filipino people should not believe in what the PRC is saying, because time and time again, they have shown that many of what they're saying are not entirely true.
Just before I move on to our next question, I'd just like to clarify. So if an area like Bajo de Masinloc is within the Philippine area of not Philippine area of responsibility, but exclusive economic zone, does this mean that anybody who passes by the area or passes through needs our permission?
Well, Bajo de Masinloc or Scarborough Shoal is not just within the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines. Bajo de Masinloc is Philippine territory, because if you say EEZ, what we only have there are economic rights, no? The right to utilize the resources that are found in the sea. But in the special case of Bajo de Masinloc, it is Philippine territory. Therefore, it generates a 10 nautical mile territorial sea. Therefore, it is the Philippines exercises sovereignty over it.
Thank you. That's very clear. In relation to Bajo de Masinloc, no, China has submitted to the United Nations baselines on its supposed territories. It included a chart of Bajo de Masinloc as part of its waters. What is your reaction to this?
Again, this has no legal effect. The submission of the People's Republic of China to the United Nations is flawed. It is flawed because you do not make baselines that are so far from the mainland. The basis of an archipelagic baseline are the outermost islands that comprise, like for example, the Philippine archipelago. So our baselines are from Batanes all the way to portions in Pangasinan and Zambales. But in the case of China, they are so many kilometers away, very far. Their largest island is Hainan Island in the PRC. So it is impossible for them to have baselines with that distance in Scarborough Shoal. So Scarborough Shoal is very near to Zambales. So again, all of these legal warfare tactics that are being submitted by the PRC to the UN has no legal force and effect, and it doesn't really change the situation whatsoever.
ADG, unfortunately, what happened isn't the first time. Ano? What's the update on the compensation being asked naman from China for the June 17 incident of Second Thomas Shoal? And that incident also caused injuries to Filipino personnel, with a Navy serviceman even severing a finger.
Well, I don't really have the information right now on that. It was the AFP that wanted to make that claim. It is not clear if the Department of Foreign Affairs has already received a reply from the People's Republic of China, from the Chinese government. But I think we made that request, or we made that claim to the PRC, but it's not yet clear what the response is.
Okay, on to another topic, ADG. The Russian embassy released a statement on its submarine spotted in the West Philippine Sea. It said in part, there are no signs of violation of international law in the actions of the Russian submarine. In accordance with the 1982 UNCLOS in the exclusive economic zone, all merchant vessels and warships, including submarines, enjoy freedom of navigation as on the high seas. Asking for your reaction to this.
Well, clearly, the Russian sub, no, the UFA, when it entered the Philippine exclusive economic zone, uh, did not show any hostile intent. I think that's the first thing that we have to make to clarify to the public. There was no hostile intent whatsoever. And when we deployed our assets, in particular the BRP Jose Rizal, to issue a radio challenge, they immediately responded, no? And they explained who they were, what they were doing there, where they came from, and where they're going. And in less than a day, they left. And before they left, they also radioed the Philippine Navy that they were leaving. So in this sense, uh, it was at first alarming because we spotted a Russian submarine in the West Philippine Sea. But when our Philippine Navy ship uh, attempted to make contact, they responded in a professional manner. So, and also, as mentioned by the Russian embassy, they were within the high seas. They were not in the territorial sea of the Philippines. So we see no alarm. No, we were no longer alarmed after the said incident.
Again, ADG, where do the new maritime laws come into play when talking about freedom of navigation? In a nutshell, how can the Philippine Maritime Zones Act and the Philippine Archipelagic Sea Lanes Act protect Philippine EEZ and sovereignty in general?
Well, what the Philippine Maritime Zones Act does is it delineates the areas in the Philippines where we exercise sovereignty, areas in the Philippines where we merely exercise sovereign rights, and areas in the Philippines that are under our jurisdiction. So in the case of the Russian sub, it did not enter Philippine territory, which is where we exercise sovereignty. It merely passed through um, our EEC. So we do not exercise sovereignty there. No, we only exercise sovereign rights, which is the authority to utilize the natural resources. So what's important about the law is that before we did not have a domestic law which clarified these areas. We only referred to UNCLOS, or we only referred to the 26th and arbitral ruling. So what we did was to put those provisions of the arbitral ruling and the international law into our domestic law.
Yes. Also, we have heard of this task force, Ayungin, and this is by way of U.S. Defense Chief Lloyd. He let it slip earlier. So the existence of this, we need to know information about, like, what is this task force about? What will it do exactly, and who are part of it?
Well, the task force is a U.S. unit that is assisting the Philippines and supporting our activities in the West Philippine Sea, in particular, our resupply missions to Ayungin Shoal. The task force, the U.S. task force, does not actively participate in operations, meaning our resupply missions to BRP Sierra Madre in Ayungin Shoal are 100% manned by Philippine troops, directed by Philippine officials, and undertaken by Philippine Navy and Western Command assets. So what the U.S. task force, which is Task Force Ayungin, what it does is to provide support, technical assistance, as well as intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, so that we can plan out and execute the resupply missions better.
And would this support and assistance that you talk about, would this be expanded to other areas of the West Philippine Sea that's experiencing aggression?
Well, right now, since the U.S. is a treaty partner, our security cooperation with them covers a wide range of activities, not only limited to our Ayungin Shoal, but they also help us providing technical assistance to us in other parts of the Kalayaan Island Group and even in other parts of the West Philippine Sea. So, yes, to answer your question, yes, we already have this very strong um, alliance with the United States, which is really foundational because our security relationship with them is one of the oldest that the US has in this part of the world. No, the US and the Philippines are treaty allies. Our security cooperation dates back to the time when we were a Commonwealth of the United States, and with the Malikatan exercises and many other activities, we just expect this to be stronger moving forward, given the geopolitical conditions in our part of the world and the challenges that we face together as allies.
The year is coming to a close, and next year is actually going to be President-elect Donald Trump's turn to be at the White House. What does the Philippine-U.S. alliance look like under his administration?
Well, we can only surmise based on the previous administration of Trump when he was president. No, 4 years ago, that was his first term, and based on his pronouncements as well as the pronouncements of his Department of State secretary at that time, we do not expect any major changes in U.S. foreign policy towards the Philippines. I say that because the concept of free and open Indo-Pacific was actually conceptualized during the Trump administration. So the Trump administration's support for international law and the rules-based international order was already conceptualized and implemented during the first Trump administration. And we also heard assurances during the first Trump administration of their support for Philippine territorial integrity and the strength of the U.S.-Philippine alliance. So based on that, and also based on the fact that many of the nominees of President-elect Donald Trump also have a strong, somewhat position in so far as China is concerned, then we are not worried. The Philippine government is not worried that there will be a major shift in American foreign policy. We expect that under the Trump administration, our relationship will grow stronger and our cooperation will grow deeper.
And finally, ADG, we know this was tackled in the Fishermen's Congress in Palawan, where you told the fishermen to go beyond municipal waters and explore the West Philippine Sea. How do we assure protection to them from the aggressors, and how do they take it?
Yes, that's why what has happened today is really the implementation of that promise, no, by the Philippine government, by President Bongbong Marcos, that we will not abandon our fishermen if they face harassment. No, that's correct. During the Fishermen's Congress in Coron last week, we said to our fishermen that we are here for you and that we will support you, and that's why you will see in both Bajo de Masinloc and in Escoda Shoal and also in Rosul Reef last week, when they call, we come. No, we may face harassment, no, but that doesn't mean we will stand down. The Philippine government will be there through the BFAR, to the Coast Guard, and maybe even by the Navy to support our Filipino fishermen. Because as I told the Filipino fishermen in Coron, Palawan, I told them that when you fish, you don't only fish for your family, or you fish because it's your livelihood. When you fish, you're also upholding Philippine sovereignty, sovereign rights. You're also upholding the Maritime Zones Law, and most importantly, you are upholding the international rules-based order.
Wow, there are still so many questions that Denise and I would like to ask you, but we have to leave it here for now. We hope to have you over again in the show sometime in the future. National Security Council Assistant Director General Jonathan Malaya, thank you for your time.
Now, up next, a second impeachment complaint is filed against Vice President Sara Duterte. How is it different from the one endorsed by Akbayan? We'll discuss this with Bayan Muna Chairperson Neri Colmenares. Keep it here on One News.
You're watching The Big Story here on One News. A second impeachment complaint has been filed against Vice President Sara Duterte. Alianza Makabayan led more than 70 groups in filing the second impeachment complaint at the House of Representatives. Unlike the first complaint filed by Akbayan, which had 4 grounds and 24 articles, Makabayan's was based off one ground: betrayal of public trust, with 3 reasons. First is gross abuse of discretionary powers when she allegedly spent 612 million pesos in confidential funds from 2022 to 2023. Next is gross disregard of transparency and making a mockery of the audit process. And finally, refusal to acknowledge Congress's power of oversight in the conduct of budget deliberations and investigations in aid of legislation. 3 Makabayan Bloc congressmen endorsed the complaint. Despite worries about timing and President Bongbong Marcos himself appealing to dissuade lawmakers from focusing on the Vice President's impeachment, they still hope Congress will remain independent.
This impeachment complaint is a challenge to Congress to show its independence, to show that it can stand on the side of the people kahit ang presidente iba pa ang sinasabi at pinapanawagan.
Umaapila kami sa mga miyembro ng mababang kapulungan na bumoto ayon sa kanilang konsyensya. hindi ayon sa kanilang partido, kung hindi ayon sa pag-weigh nila sa kung ano ba ang tama at o mali sa ating bayan.
President Bongbong Marcos issued a stern reminder in front of almost 40 newly promoted generals and flag officers of the Armed Forces of the Philippines who took their oaths this afternoon. The president said that with the country already facing a lot of challenges, such as calamities and territorial disputes, it's essential for soldiers to focus on these problems.
As stewards of our national defense, you bear the solemn responsibility of ensuring the security of our land, of our seas, of our skies, our cyberspace. We must uphold international maritime laws, deepening our commitment to regional peace and cooperation. I enjoin you to lead with honor, serve with integrity, and inspire others with your example. Stand with your troops, stand for the Constitution, and above all, stand for the Filipino people.
The president's call to the military came just as China Coast Guard vessel rammed and launched water cannon attacks on a vessel of the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources in the vicinity of Bajo de Masinloc in the West Philippine Sea. It also comes on the heels of former President Rodrigo Duterte's call to the military to protect the Constitution amid what the latter called the fractured governance in the Philippines. Rumors of a brewing coup against Marcos Jr. sprang amid moves to impeach Vice President Sara Duterte in Congress. But top officials of the AFP themselves assured there's no talk of destabilization among their ranks.
As far as the armed forces of the Philippines, sir, there's nothing to worry about. We'll be mission focused and we will abide by the duly constituted authority.
The Philippine Statistics Authority continues to look into the names that appeared on receipts that Vice President Sara Duterte's office submitted to justify its confidential funds. So after Mary Grace Piatos, the PSA now says no record for Kokoy Villamin was found either. During the House hearing on the use of the OVP's confidential funds, the name Kokoy Villamin appeared on multiple acknowledgement receipts in 2022 and 2023. But lawmakers noticed these bore varying handwriting and signatures. PSA Assistant National Statistician Mariza Grande said they continue to look into the identity of this Kokoy Villamin, as Kokoy could be a nickname. But Grande noted that full names should be used in official documents.
Kaya kailangan namin additional information para maging accurate po yung ating verification. May mga other scenarios like pwede po silang hindi nakarehistro or possible din na wala lang kaming records sa PSA at available sa local.
Up next, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol faces impeachment over a short-lived martial law declaration. More on this developing story when we return.
You're still watching the big story here on One News. So Denise, I'm sure everyone watching us has heard, everyone in the Philippines at least, has heard about the second impeachment complaint filed against Vice President Sara Duterte.
That's right.
I just wanted to share something that somebody else also shared to me. No, This is a tweet from former Senator Ping Lacson. Okay, and it says here, an impeachment proceeding is a political exercise first, legal second. The Senate, as the impeachment court, will finally decide to convict with at least 16 votes from its 24 members. So with 7 re-electionists, plus at least 3 known Duterte allies not running in the May 2025 senatorial election, predicting the outcome is not necessarily rocket science. So basically, everyone, it's implying that right now it may be a big hurdle for the second impeachment to actually go through.
Also, the question has always been, do we have the numbers? Simula
Right.
naman, di ba? Simulat sa poll, that has always been the question.
Totoo.
From the first filing of Akbayan and the second one from Makabayan. Alam natin that there is a certain timeline that we need to follow. There's a maximum of 10 days from step 1 and then 60 days up until
Right.
the end, up until Senate gets to decide on it. Pero hindi naman kailangan i-maximize diba? There's also a case, ang ginagawa nating example lagi is yung kay Corona.
Totoo yan.
Diba?
Yes, we always go back to that.
We
or
always
refer
go
to
back to that.
Yeah.
Tapos ang sinasabi nga ng mga tao is kung gusto, may paraan.
May paraan talaga.
Diba?
Oo.
Pero kung hindi gusto, kung mahaba.
So yung difference lang, by the way, for those who aren't updated, the first impeachment complaint had, I believe, several grounds, right?
5 grounds,
yeah,
24 articles.
But this one, the second complaint only has one ground,
betrayal
which
of
is
public
betrayal
trust.
of public trust, which actually we read the item earlier, no, with 3 parang supporting the ground for impeachment. So basically, I remember President Bongbong Marcos sometime this week actually said, or last week ata yun, yung umapela siya, di ba? There was a text message going viral saying,
there are more
VP
important things.
Yeah,
This is a storm in a teacup.
exactly.
Kwentong chicherya.
Oo. Pero bakit kaya, pinupush talaga nila ng Kongreso, di ba? Despite Pangulong Bongbong Marcos or President Marcos saying, guys, there are more important issues that we can look into.
But then again, that is what he said.
Right.
But the president actually has technically no say because equal powers to
dapat.
diba? Oo.
Magkaiba different executive
Exactly.
and legislative branch.
Oo.
Independent dapat
Oo.
of each other.
Pero syempre, yung mga nagpa-file nga, sinasabi nila, if not now, then when? Especially since after daw ng midterm elections, mas mawawalan ng weight, I guess, yung kanilang ifa-file if ever they do decide to file it after the election.
I wonder though if within this December ay aabot dun sa committee.
Oo.
The committee in charge of this, right? Yes, go ahead.
Because because mag-a-adjourn ng I believe
December
on December
20.
20. December
Oo.
20 and then they go back like
January
third
13.
week, second week of January.
Yeah, January 13 yung balik, no? So yeah, that remains to be seen. Yeah, I actually see the schedule here that you were talking about, the schedule that they're actually trying to run after. Diba? Kasi they're running against time talaga sila eh.
Correct.
And also, by the way, we have to note, which we already also said earlier, no, in the item, that the impeachments are actually political in nature and not legal. So kaya yung sinasabi ni Denise kanina talaga, numbers game talaga ito. Meaning, depende, the numbers will depend of course dun sa mga kaalyado mo. Diba?
So we need 103 out of the 307.
Right,
Technically, it's 102.33 pero ikakautan natin as 103.
Kasi kung naalala nyo, sino yung nawala sa 24? May nawala tayong isang senador di ba? Sa 24. So kaya 23 na lang sila. Okay. So yun. So anyway, we that remains to be seen if ma-refer sa committee this December. So yeah, that's it for now for that.
And of course, to help us discuss this,
we actually have the legal counsel of Aliansang Makabayan with us, attorney Nery Colmenares. Finally, an expert. Sir, first we'd like to greet you a very happy birthday. You're in the car, we can see. You're mobile.
Yeah, I can't hear. Anyway.
Okay, so second impeachment complaint against VP Sara Duterte. Why just one ground? Just to clarify this with everyone.
Alam mo ba siya nakikita ka sa camera?
Sir,
Kita ka. Tingnan mo.
okay lang po. Okay lang po.
Wala pong problema, sir.
Yeah. So basically, sir, we just want to know why just one ground, betrayal of public trust. I don't think he can hear me, no?
Attorney?
Okay, I don't think, yeah, we'll work on that again. Well, we were just asking him, why just one ground, betrayal of public trust? Because from what I know, earlier, no, lumabas na to sa mga headlines, diba? Para mas mabilis pag-usapan.
Yes. Pero ulitin lang natin, yung lumabas nung first complaint is 5 grounds. So, betrayal of public trust, culpable violation of the Constitution, issuing threats versus high-ranking officials, misuse of billions of pesos in confidential funds, and direct involvement in extrajudicial killings.
Ayun. So, okay. Okay, let's get back to Attorney Nery Colmenares. Sir, can you hear us now?
Yes, we can hear. I can hear you now. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay.
No
But
worries.
first of all, happy birthday. So we were just earlier. What a way to celebrate your birthday, diba? We were just, Denise and I were just saying, well, isang ground nga lang, no? Itong second impeachment complaint, which is betrayal of public trust. Kasi sabi nga nila, para mas mabilis, maybe you would like to expound on that, sir.
Yes, well, of course, we are realistic here. There are time constraints, so we thought if we just issue it on, we just base it on one ground, which is betrayal of public trust, which is the overarching. It encompasses all grounds actually of the impeachment, so it's easier for the House members to decide to whether to endorse it or not to endorse it. And secondly, if it goes to trial, it's easier for the Senate to really decide on the issue too. And maybe if the trial is in say January, in 1 month's time, I think the Senate can easily decide whether or not to convict or acquit on the basis of the betrayal of public trust. And secondly, the main issue we just focus on is confidential funds, which is actually the strongest of the issues. Of course, the others are strong as well, but that will entail some time for the Senate to resolve. So that's why we chose it. No, just a simple thing. I was a prosecutor in the Corona impeachment complaint, and one of the things that really we encountered, we had 8 grounds, no, 8 acts. We had 3 grounds: culpable violation of the Constitution, graft and corruption, betrayal of public trust, and it really was too difficult for us. That's why it went on for more than 4 months. But if it's just one ground and just 3 acts, no longer 8 or 10, then I think we can get it by, say, 1 month. We will be able to make it in the Senate trial.
Sir, 75 groups have supported the impeachment complaint. Since September, Makabayan has been announcing their intent to file an impeachment versus VP Sara. And you cited an example, yun pong kay Corona, 4 months for 8 grounds. Bakit po ngayon lang, if alam niyo po na pwede siyang tumagal, and why file separately from Akbayan?
Actually, we didn't know about the Akbayan complaint, actually, because they drafted it. So it would have been good if there will be a joint effort among all groups. But we didn't know about that. But anyway, we were also drafting our complaint, and then so now that it's filed, I guess the more the merrier here. So if more groups can file, because the rule is, as long as the plenary has not referred it to the Justice Committee, other complaints can still be filed if they want to. It will still be entertained by the House, of course, under the rules. So the reason for the length of time is we've been hearing the Senate, the committee hearings, and there were like 7 or 8 committee hearings, and the transcripts are just so voluminous. And the lawyers there said, we really need the official transcripts. We need to prepare. Medyo very strict yung requirements ng mga lawyers. So that's why it took us some time to really prepare it, essentially. So I guess there are different ways of doing this, and one of the things that we did was to really look at this committee hearings up to what time. Oh my God, it's midnight sometimes, right? So and then the transcripts are just hundreds of pages of transcripts. So it took us some time to really formulate the impeachment ground.
Sir, Sir, at some point, no, the impeachment complaints will be consolidated. Can you walk us through the whole process? And will it be up to the House Justice Committee to do this, or will the complainants have a say on what the grounds and articles of the impeachment will be included?
It's of course up to the House. We can argue, we can give our opinions, but in the end, they decide. So there are two ways of going about it. The first is, of course, it gets one third from the House members endorsing the complaint. Then the articles of impeachment go straight to the Senate. That's what happened. For example, I think it happened in the era of impeachment complaint. The one third was immediately gathered, and then it didn't went through the Justice Committee. The second is the House refers it to the Justice Committee, in which case there will be a hearing. A hearing, of course, where the complainants are there, and then there's of course, if the committee would like to ask, for example, the Vice President to comment, and so on. So there will be, according to the rules, 60 days, 60 session days it will take. They have a maximum of that at least. But of course, if they decide in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then that's the option of the Senate committee. But at any time, the the House Committee on Justice will decide on the complaints, whether or not they're going to dismiss the complaints, or there are two complaints right now that the Justice Committee can entertain. Whether they're going to dismiss the complaints or approve the complaints, it has to go back to the plenary, and one third of the plenary can overturn the decision of the committee. So, for example, if the committee decides to dismiss the impeachment complaint, and then one third can overrule that, or the reverse can also happen. So that's the way it will go. So I don't know. So it's a matter either of a few days or of a few weeks, depending on the leadership and, of course, the members of the House of Representatives.
Sir, there was a text message that went viral, no, from Pangulong Bongbong Marcos. So we would just like to get your reaction to his pronouncement that pushing through with the impeachment now will be counterproductive and basically just a waste of time.
Well, that's the opinion. If that was true, that's the opinion of the president. The trial has not started. The Senate and the House members have not seen the impeachment complaint and the evidence. I'm sure whether or not it's going to gain traction, it depends on the evidence. If they think that, for example, if the Senate are convinced that indeed 125 million pesos splurged in just 11 days, that's too much. If the Senate thinks that's really impeachable, then the Senate can decide right there and then. Very easy. There are analyses on how a senator will vote. For me, it's too premature. I mean, there are senators who we think, oh, that one, that they will vote against it on political considerations and so on, electoral considerations. Well, that's what the complainants and the people's organizations who submitted the complaint are asking the senators and even the House members. You decide according to your conscience, decide according to the rules on the principles of accountability, and decide according to your duty to country. Members of Congress, both the Senate and the House, are supposed to be the guardians of public funds. The Senate and the House passed the budget. They gave it to the one, of course, to the Vice President, and the Vice President cannot account for it. Isn't it the duty of the Senate and the House to make sure that doesn't happen? So for me, even if the president thinks, oh, we will not get the votes in the Senate, that's a political consideration probably. But we are asking the senators to decide on the basis of the merits of the case, look at the evidence, and of course, the interest of the Filipino people.
Now, if in case the complaint breezes through Congress, do you think you have the numbers at the Senate?
I would like to think so, because I would like to think that the senators would like to guard public funds with all their might. And here is a clear example of public funds wasted or misused. Can you imagine that you're going to spend millions of pesos and sign it with a Mary Grace Piatos? I mean, if the Senate will find nothing impeachable or wrong with that, then we're in a very tight fix, because the Senate will now say, "Oh, well, we're going to give budget to people. They don't need to sign it. They can use fake names. It's all right with us." That's really terrible, right? So, in my opinion, if the senators are shown the evidence, I don't think political consideration should be their primordial concern. For me, the interest of the Filipino people, the interest of public funds, is the main concern of senators and any legislator for that matter. So yeah, I guess we're optimistic that because if we show the evidence, the senators will vote in favor of conviction, if only they will use, of course, the principles of accountability and, of course, their conscience and their duties.
Thank you for joining us again. Happy birthday and have a safe travel back home, I guess. Attorney Nery Colmenares, Aliansang Makabayan's legal counsel.
The big story abroad, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol faces impeachment after a short-lived martial law declaration. Yoon declared an emergency martial law on Tuesday evening, accusing threats from North Korea and anti-state activities by the opposition.
북한 공산 세력의 위협으로부터 자유 대한민국을 수호하고
Following the declaration, more than 280 troops arrived at the National Parliament to barricade the site, causing tensions to rise within the nation. 190 lawmakers, some of which jumped fences, made their way through the National Parliament in order to unanimously vote to reject the declaration. Yoon withdrew the martial law declaration 6 hours later. South Korea opposition parties have filed a motion to impeach Yoon following the declaration. Here at home, the Department of Foreign Affairs has not advised any travel ban to South Korea, though it has urged tourists and Filipinos already in Korea to take extra precautions amid the political tension in the region. And that's the show for tonight. We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thank you. Good night. Stay tuned because coming up next is Play by Play with Andre Felix. Teka, Andre, saan si Cheska?
Dalawa lang din kayo eh.
Oo, kami.
Hindi, Cheska's out somewhere. And Pawi was supposed to be with you guys and was supposed to join me. She's not feeling well as well. Sino sa inyo ang gustong sumali? Gusto ko kayong dalawa na eh. Sino?
Ako, kailangan ko na umuwi.
Kailangan mo na umuwi. Si Denise,
Sige,
sports naman yan eh. Sama mo ako
Basta sports, wala tayong problem.
Ready ka na? Ready ka na?
Oo.
Dali lang naman, madadali lang naman. Well, on the show, we've got the latest NBA and PBA scores, semifinal action in the Spikers Turf and UAAP Women's Basketball Tournament. And we also talked to members of the Philippine Floorball team about the upcoming World Floorball Championships. I'm Andre Felix, and Denise Tan will be with me shortly, sitting in for Cheska Liton Calao. And here's tonight's play-by-play.